Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing LeetCode problem number 11, container with most water, but with a twist. Today I have my friend Jamil S on, and he's been a software engineer for a couple of years. Let's go ahead and get started, and I'll let him introduce himself. All right. Jamil, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you so much for taking the time to do this mock interview. This is always super fun. I had a mock interview with Dominic, and that was super, super cool. And so I just wanted to bring you on. And yeah, I wanted to, test your skills. And yeah, I would love for you just to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Thomas. I appreciate you for having me. So, hello, everyone. My name is Jamil. I'm the founder of Synno Technologies, and Synno is just my last name. So, I'm a full stack software developer, founder, and accessibility advocate. That's what I run Synno Technologies mostly on. We provide web applications, mobile applications, and static websites. But the thing that makes us stand out from the rest of our competition is that we build with accessibility first. We run accessibility audits and we do accessibility testing. I am working on getting my CPAC certification for this, so that things fall into place a little bit better.
Heck yeah.
And yeah, I've been coding for almost a decade, honestly. But professionally, I really started leaning into coding around COVID.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, let's go ahead and get started with the LeetCode problem number 11, container with most water.
Perfect.
All right, so let's go ahead and start by reading the problem statement. You're given an integer array height of length n. There are n vertical lines drawn such that the two endpoints of the ith line are I and 0, and I of height of I is the second input. Find two lines that together with the x-axis form a container such that the container contains the most water. Return the maximum amount of water a container can store. Notice that you may not slant the container. So for an input height of 1, 8, 6, 2, 5, 4, 8, 3, 7, our output is 49. The reason being is the above vertical lines are represented by the array, and in this case, the max area of water, the blue section, the container can contain is 49. That's the max area. For example 2, input height is 1 and 1, and the output should be 1. We have another one here, and the maximum should be 16. So, Jamil, I'll go ahead and let you take it away. How would you solve this problem?
All right, Thomas, thank you so much. So I'm going to start off by asking you a few questions. I'm going to deal with this as if it's a mock interview, so I hope that you don't mind also being
Absolutely
questioned at the same time. Fantastic. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and go through the question again with you. I just want to make sure that I have everything figured out and that I'm covering as many cases that I can. Okay.
Absolutely.
So just to confirm, for this question, I'm going to be passed an array, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to be passed an array, and in this array, I'm going to have numbers.
Yep.
Since we're dealing with heights, okay, and in this array is only going to have numbers, right?
Yep.
I shouldn't expect anything along the lines of characters in there or special characters. Okay, no characters or special characters. Fantastic. Are there going to be negative numbers in there? Since we're talking about height. Okay, so there's no negative numbers either. Fantastic. I think for the most part that should give me any most of my covers. If anything else comes up, I'll ask you for it in the future. And so basically, Thomas, what are you looking for in return? I need to return something to you, and I think it's going to be a number.
It's going to be an integer. Yeah.
Okay, so return an integer. Okay. Return an integer. Cool. And the integer is supposed to represent the maximum
area of the
water
container. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, of the container that can store the most water. Right?
Yep.
Fantastic. Okay, I think I have a good handle on what's going on right now with the question. So I will start solving it. So now that I have what I need to pass pointed out in my returns, let's start by trying to figure out how to solve this question. So since I'm going to be asked to solve the height, I'm going to need to compare a couple of things. we know in order to save that to get the height, I need, or the area. Sorry, area is equal to length or height by width, right?
Yep.
So what I will need to figure out is the width and the height before I'm able to get the max area out of there. So I'm going to start off by putting everything together to figure out the width, because that's a little bit harder than the two. The height is already given to us in the array.
Yep.
And for me to do that, I'm going to need to compare the left-hand side of the container and the right-hand side of the container, and in order to put that into my area function. So we'll use 2 pointers. We'll use one that is for the left-hand side, so I'll call it left. And it's going to start on the very first position of the array to compare the very left-hand side of all of these heights. And then we'll do the same thing with our right, and we'll say right is equal to, instead of like a specified number, it's going to be the length of our height array minus 1, since we are starting at our 0th index.
Yep.
Okay.
So just to be clear, you're grabbing the 1 in the beginning of the array and then the 7 at the end.
Correct. And so that will be the first time left and right are initialized and referenced.
Okay.
And we will also need to run a comparison with our areas, because our first iteration will respond with one area, the next iteration will respond with a different area, and we need to compare those two areas to see which one of the two is larger, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So I'm going to call that variable max area, and I'm just going to initialize it to 0, because area can't be negative, and I mean it's the lowest point it will ever be. Okay?
Yep, that's correct.
Perfect. I think that's going to be all of the variables that I'm going to need to be able to solve this question. But if I do need anything else, I'll come back and add some more.
Yep.
Cool.
Sounds reasonable.
So now that I have my 2 pointers and I have my area, I need to iterate over my loop or over my array, and figure out things as the loop iterates. And since I don't know the end of the size of the array or how long the array will be, and I don't have a clear end, what I'm going to do is I'll actually be using a while loop. Okay. And in my while loop, right, I need to run a check, and I want the loop to run as long as my left pointer and my right pointer don't go over each other, right? And so because we're just doing redundance.
So basically what you're doing here is you're checking different container sizes. So you're going from one side of the container to the other side of the container. And then at some point you're going to be moving them down and up and down and up and down and up until we get to our maximum area. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, sounds reasonable.
Cool. And so for me to do that, ultimately, I don't want my left pointer to ever be greater than my right pointer, right? That just makes sense, because if, for our first example, if left starts making it past 5, then we've already checked 4, 8, 3, and 7, right? We've checked out with our right pointer. So we are just adding redundant checks, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me ask you this question. When would you move your left pointer up, and when would you move your right pointer down?
Great question. I would move my pointers, either pointer, when it is the lesser of the two heights.
Okay.
Why
would you do that?
Fantastic. The reason why I would do that is because we are being asked to find the maximum height.
Right.
Or the maximum area, right? And so if we're looking for the maximum area, we know that the maximum area will be the largest numbers multiplied by each other, right? So it's going to be the largest height and the largest width multiplied by each other, naturally, to give us our largest area, right? Yep. So if we are moving our pointers, we don't want to move the larger of the two heights. We want to move the smaller of the two heights. Right? So I'm going to give a couple of spaces for myself, and I'm just going to run the check, and I'm just going to say if the height of the pointer from the left-hand side, right, is smaller than the height of the pointer from the right-hand side, we want to move the left-hand side up, right? We want to get closer in. So we'll say height from the left-hand side is lesser than height from the right-hand side. What are we going to do? We are going to be moving our pointer up. So we'll say left plus plus, right? So left goes on our first iteration from 0 to 1, right? Otherwise, we want to move our right-hand pointer down. So if the size of the array, which is here 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So if on our first iteration, right is 8, right? and the height is smaller than the left-hand side height,
Yeah.
we want right no longer to be 8. We want right now to be 7. Okay,
Yep.
fantastic. But I don't think my code is done here just yet. I think I need to do one more thing to be able to get our max height, and there's going to be one more comparison. So on our iterations, we want to make sure that we are checking the area each and every time, lest we come across an area that is greater than our max area. And for me to do that, I'm going to be referencing the equation on line 6 and essentially writing that out in code.
Yep.
So
okay,
I'm going to be using the keyword area for this variable. Okay.
Mhm.
And I need to figure out, so this is when, instead of using the larger of the two heights, I actually need to use the lesser of the two heights.
Okay.
So for example, it's because if I have a container with one side that is 5 and one side that is 7,
Yep.
I can't use the height of 7 because there's going to be the difference of 2 where water is not going to hold, right?
Yeah.
The water will only go up to the minimum height.
Yeah, that's
Right.
correct. Similar to
So-
our image here on the side. I don't know if you see that, but yeah, you can't get to the highest part because the water would spill out on the right hand side, right?
Exactly. So I need the lesser of the two heights to find the area because that's all the water is going to be held in. So if it's going to be the lesser of the two heights, I'm just going to use our handy dandy math.min function.
Okay.
Okay. And our math.min function, I'm going to be using that to find the heights, and then we already know our weights, right? We have, because our pointers tell us where they are in the array,
Mhm.
and that's the distance between the two walls. So I'm just going to quickly write that in because that's easy and simple, right? It's right minus left. But in our math.min function, we need our heights, which are the values in the array. So 1, 8, 6, 2, and 5. So we reference those using height
Mhm.
left and height right.
Yeah.
Okay. And in our function here, math.min, what it will do is it will search those two, grab the value that is smaller, and then multiply it by the difference of right times left. And now
Yeah,
we have a new area.
Sounds reasonable. I was going to mention here, it's important to notice that right minus left is the pointer, right? We're not actually subtracting the height of the left, the height of the right, and the height of the left. We're checking where the pointers are from the left side to the right side. So the right will always be greater than the left because that's where the pointer lies on the array.
Exactly.
Cool.
So we have created a new area in this iteration, and we now need to run this comparison between our area and our max area. Because if area is greater than max area, then we have a new max area to work with and a new pointer. So that's a simple check, right? And if we're using a check, what do we do? If we're checking, we typically will check using an if statement. And in my if statement, my condition is going to be if area, which is the value that we just calculated, is greater than our max area, which is our variable that we already had, right? Max area. Oh my goodness, max area is equal to area. So we are now reassigning area with the new value if it is larger than it was before.
Yeah, sounds reasonable.
Sounds reasonable, right? Everything here seems fine and dandy, but there's one last thing that I need to do with this function in order to get it working. We have made our way through the array. We now have our new max area. It's all great and happy, and we're all excited. But what is the function supposed to return to us? Well,
max area.
Max area, right?
All right.
We need to figure out what the max area is. So we just return max area. And yeah, I think the way that the function is currently set up, it should give us a proper return on what the max area would be. But yeah, I think, do you see anything that stands out in the function that you would change?
No, I think you did pretty good. I think you went through the problem thoroughly. You kind of listed out all the edge cases through the problem as you work through it. So I think you did pretty good. I think this looks pretty solid to me. Let's go ahead and run.
Go ahead.
All right. Okay, so that was pretty quick. We have 49, 1, and 16 as expected. And yeah, that's pretty much
fantastic.
It. I think you did a great job, like I said, explaining through what you were doing on each section of the algorithm. And I think that's it.
Fantastic.
Well, Jamil, I really enjoyed having you on. Thank you so much for, doing this mock interview with me. I've really been enjoying these mock interviews. And, last week I had Dominic on and that was like really, really fun. So I really appreciate you being here. How
Thank you for
was
having
the
me.
algorithm problem for you?
I think it went well overall, everything considered. So for those watching, I did do my homework beforehand, but this is not to say like how I would typically like this wouldn't be any different from how I would typically approach a question like this in the future,
Yeah.
in a sense where it is really like important to try and understand what the question is asking and not what you're supposed to code.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure.
Because when you find out what the question is asking, so in this sense, it was like really, there was a very clear cut, you need to find the maximum area. And then it gave you a couple of things in the form of an array and heights and widths. And if you worked around the idea of what the question was asking, so, you have your area or you're looking for an area and you have your heights and you have your widths, you look for your height and your widths and then you compare areas and you return that the maximum area.
Yeah.
And then really that's where the question really
Really kind of fills itself out, right? Like
exactly.
it kind of explains it to you like, oh, okay, these are the things that I kind of need to know. How do I tackle that section of it? And then once you kind of get a grasp on what it's asking, you're like, okay, now I have a bunch of smaller problems. I know what I need to kind of solve from there, and then I can return whatever it is that I need to return.
Exactly. 100%. That's very well put, Thomas. Like honestly, it's like this is less of a coding problem and more of like your problem solving abilities. And then you write out. So for the most part, most of the question for me was actually asking what was being passed, what was being returned, what the logic was, because I could write as many if statements as I wanted to, but if I'm just checking, if I'm just checking randomly, then it doesn't get me any closer to the solution. And so trying to get a grasp of the question and then building the code afterwards is sort of how I like to approach these questions, and then go about solving them.
All right, well, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and like and subscribe. It really helps me out. Jamil, where can people find you if they want to get a hold of you, if they want to have you on as a consultant?
Fantastic. If you want to find me and if you want to look for some more of the things that I do, I am on YouTube, I am on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, all Sinno Technologies, SINNO Technologies.
Great. I'll go ahead and add those to the description down below. And then, people will be able to find you that way as well, too.
Appreciate that.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. Have a great day and have a great rest of your week.